Hello. Welcome back to a higher source. Your presence here with us today, wherever and whenever you are right now, is greatly appreciated. We depend on you hearing our messages if we're going to have any chance of bringing in a new age of love on your planet. You might not believe a new age of love is possible with the state of affairs you are currently facing, but we assure you it can happen. But it's going to take some help. You are living through a time that you will always remember. You will one day look back on the events that you cannot believe you are living through right now, and all will make sense. Your hindsight will bring the current moment into focus. But you don't have to wait for the future. Real change begins in the imagination. Visualize a realistic future. What do you think the Earth will look like in 10, or 20, or 30 years? Is it a place you want to live? Now, visualize the world in which you'd want to live. Transform your vision of what you expect into a vision of the future you desire. Put your energy into making that vision a reality. It all begins with a thought in your head. And it finishes with your actions. Do not be dissuaded by those who do not believe the future cannot be changed. It can be. It will be. We've seen it. But it won't be easy. It's going to require a gigantic shift in general consciousness. You can be a pioneer. You can be the first wave. It's going to take generations of shifting before love blankets the earth again. Someone needs to tip the first domino. Will it be you? We now turn the current moment over to Hollee and Mark. They are clearly immersed in the energy of the current day, with the COVID-19 incident just now beginning. They're miles from where they were last week. They're light years from where they'll be in a year. Maybe you'll be there with them. We certainly hope so. Let's listen in now. We love you.
You were telling me the other day about some Stonehenge-looking thing, but I think it was in South America, where they where ancient extraterrestrials were blasting off. Was it in South America, or was it somewhere else?
Oh gosh, you know what? I've been doing a ton of research on that stuff. I've really been deep into it. I could have been talking about any number.
They had those stones that were just precision laser cut.
It's Tiwanaku, and the temple mound is called Pumapunka. It's in Bolivia, and Tiwanaku is like the territory that surrounds it. And they found these really huge. I mean, they have this row of 5 that they call the H blocks, and they're these huge pieces of granite, and they're carved with laser precision, and the place is all messed up. It's not in the order that it used to be. It's like somebody stepped on a Lego set. I guess there was a big flood that moved the stones and everything, so nobody's quite sure how it was originally put together and what other materials might have been in between these really giant stones, but they're all perfectly cut on the level like a laser cutter would. I watched the show, and they went around with what's that called? It's like a metal ruler, a right angle.
A T?
Yeah.
A T-square?
Yeah, and they went around and they just T-squared every angle, and they were all perfect. And these tiny little holes where they think they had set pulleys and all kinds of things. But when they asked the locals about it, they just always said that the Star People built Pumapunka. And that's just the only explanation that they give. And so, the theorists have kind of modeled some different forms of how it might have worked and what it might have looked like. But basically, these H things were kind of laid down like a track that made a runway for something. And then there's a temple a town not very far from there that was just kind of like walled off and leveled off and had like fire pits and stuff that the locals built just as the place to stay for people who came to visit Pumapunke, or whatever it's called. What did I call it?
I don't know.
It's something like that.
I'm no good with names.
Pumapunke, something like that.
I think that's what you said.
Yeah, and so, they would make pilgrimages back to it and kind of do rituals, but they're very non-specific about any other information aside from the fact that the star people built it.
When was this built? Do you know? Or do they think? When do they estimate?
I don't remember. I
don't
remember.
It doesn't matter. What do you think they were doing there? What do you think? Like
536 AD.
So that was long after the Egyptian
right
shit went down. The pyramids.
Right. Okay, so then, like, not far from there is this other complex where people gathered or whatever, and they have this wall built, and inset into the little walls are all these different faces of different races, and they even use different colors of stones. It looks like this cosmic UN, and in those stones, there is basically a gray alien with big eyes represented, like a Zeta Reticulan looking guy. Also some strange, like, it's weird that in Bolivia they would have kind of some that look Asian, some that look it's just very diverse and interesting, and some of them even like look like old Mesopotamian gods, like Sumerian forms.
So what do you think?
Did they hold like a council there?
That's interesting.
Did they all decide to like come there and make the pilgrimage to Pumapunke? And like, they don't know. So some of the other theorists were trying to explain it away in years past, and were like, oh yeah, they could have done it by hand if they were just, very, very, very skilled craftsmen. And so then the question was like, well, how did they quarry these stones from? It's like 200 miles away wherever they quarried the stones from. And so they said, oh, well, they put them on, they did the log rolling thing where they lay down the logs. But here's the thing, it's like Tiwanaku and all those things are like high above the tree line in the Bolivian peaks. There are no trees anywhere near there.
That's interesting.
Or evidence that there ever was.
Well, I mean, does anybody really even believe that anymore? The things we learned in school
right.
about how
right.
the ancient pyramids were built. Does anybody really believe that? I mean, isn't the consensus kind of that extraterrestrials came and did it?
Here's the thing. There's all these pyramids all over the world. They found pyramids in China, and the Chinese government has... they had their citizens go out and plant trees and shrubs on top of and all over to cloak these ancient pyramids that are like right there in like the middle of China, and they won't let, it's protected airspace, and nobody really knows what they found in there, if anything.
I wonder if Google Maps has been able to do a flyby.
Yeah, so here was this other weird thing, and this is pretty trippy. In the Great Pyramid of Giza, they had the king's chamber and the queen's chamber and all these other little chambers, and they had always noticed the little, what they called ventilation shafts, those little narrow things. They figured it was probably, so that the workers inside wouldn't suffocate or anything. But both of the tombs in the king's chamber and the queen's chamber were found empty, and they always just imagined that they were looted. But one of these scientists stuck a little... like a snake camera down into the vent, and he noticed some residue on the walls, and so they scraped it and they sampled it, and what they found is that on one chamber from the outside they had pumped in this like hydrated zinc solution is what it tested for, and on the other side was like this sulfuric acid compound. So if you poured them in at the same time, they would run down the little ventilation pipes and mix in the queen's chamber, and it would bubble up and basically create an electromagnetic wave and a field that would then travel through the whole pyramid and possibly out other shafts, like plumes of red smoke and dramatic things. And they also wonder if that's how they levitated the heavy shaft stones that blocked the doorways to those chambers, was using a chemical reaction and using the bubbles to actually raise those stones and then brace them from underneath.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. So was it a power plant, or was it just like a great spectacle? What were they doing with like a giant chemically induced seismic wave of electromagnetic energy?
Yeah. Yeah, and you see like in like the hieroglyphics and stuff, like they show that kind of stuff.
Right. I
happening.
mean, these things rising and bubbles and stars, and it's everything we probably have ever thought about it is wrong.
Well, let's put into let's use kind of these mysterious these ancient wonders. I think that the wonders of the world. Like, how did this happen? And as like, let's go back even farther. Like, why are humans here? How did humans? Okay, let me give you some backup of what I'm thinking. My belief is that humans are a subspecies of the pre-Homo, whatever the first one, erectus, and like apes, or whatever was
Right.
here, some primitive form of that.
Right.
And the DNA was either manipulated, or they were, I don't know if they were crossbred, or if it was a more of a scientific approach where they
I
were
think
just
the theory and
changing
the
DNA.
the lore is exactly that, is that like they kind of came down and really, well, even Zeus thought
manipulated the DNA.
human women were really beautiful and created hybrids with, I mean, Zeus is like the main one that did it, or at least the most common one that we know about, but it's pretty much in all of those that they were like, and all religions are like, oh yeah, we're like the children of God, we're like something made
Right.
as a hybrid.
But what's the reality of it? Were humans created? Were Homo sapiens created to be a slave race? To be the workers? To build all these things that were to come? And then, once whatever it was, the people around us are very loud today.
There was nothing going on, so we decided to do this.
Okay, so were the workers like were human beings created to be workers for these? And then so whatever it was that they were mining or doing here, they finished. They've depleted it. And maybe if you look, I'm not sure about the dates. It's something I would need to look at more. But it sounds kind of like the Egyptian pyramids were much older. So maybe they were working on that place, on that area of the world, mining whatever it is they were mining for until it was depleted, and then moved over to the other hemisphere and started working over there. And of course it would be different. There are different materials. There's different
Right, but the
things to work
concepts
with.
of
But the
pyramids
concepts were the same. And so then once everything was depleted and they left, the workers are just left here.
Right. Or maybe they selected their favorite children among them.
Sure,
and took
took the good ones, and the ones who had, I would imagine the workers who had stopped breeding with the extraterrestrials and were just breeding amongst each other and breeding the alien bloodline out of their blood.
Some probably
ones that got
stayed
left.
and some probably left. And I mean, it's just like any other political invasion, isn't it?
But is that
They tend to mix.
Do you think that too? Is that like were humans created to be the workers for some extraterrestrial alien race?
I mean, how else would it have happened?
And now we've been left to our own devices?
Yeah. But, if they really are like the Anunnaki of Nibiru, then they are set to kind of return to us at some point.
Yeah.
So maybe they had to have slaves to build this technology that gets them back home in time when their planet's still within range. And I mean, there just isn't time to train workers and ask them nicely. It's like they either find a way to manipulate the people into building this technology to get them back home, or
so basically
be
what you're
stranded
saying
forever.
Basically what you're saying is they reside on Nibiru.
They're from there,
and no,
the belief.
And when the planet gets to in the orbits in the galaxy get to where they're close enough that they can make the transition from there to here,
There's a limited window of time.
Maybe they haven't depleted the resources of whatever they were here taking.
But wouldn't it make sense that that's why all the pyramids and Stonehenge and all these things are all aligned to Orion's belt?
Yeah.
And it just, like, they all have this main focal point in the stars. And these weird alignments, like, why were we tracking the solstice? Sure, the theory is, like, yeah, we do it for agriculture. Was that technology that was given to us when they said, look, have you ever noticed, like, the seasons change? And, like, suddenly we went, oh my gosh, we can use these sundials and these... I mean, it was an exchange. Maybe a slave race isn't quite fair.
Or maybe it is because, like,
or
what
maybe
you're saying...
it was. It's like, but it could have been... I mean, they were exchanging...
But if what you're
good
saying
things
is true...
into us, too, and teaching, giving us technologies and knowledge, and maybe not all of it...
If what you're saying is true and they're coming back, they haven't. It's not depleted. It's just that they had to leave.
And they didn't even abandon us.
No,
it's just that
they
there's
had
a
to
certain
leave
time
because
frame.
they weren't going to be able to make it back if they didn't leave at that time.
In which the orbits are even
and
attainable.
that time is coming
Maybe
back.
a wormhole opens.
That time is coming back around, and they're coming back, and they're going to be like, "Oh, you're cute. You thought you were in charge here, but you're the slaves."
Right.
And it goes right back to being their slaves again until it's time that they have to take off again.
Well, that's, yeah. I mean, it's just like, there's I think it's Sumerian. It's like the Sumerian legend is that there were two giants, from heaven. There were brothers. They were the sons of this god that were given dominion over the earth. And, like, the one of them was, like, sick of humans. They're like, they're noisy. They all annoy me. Let's just drown them all. But the other one thought, I don't really want to be here anymore and have dominion over the earth, but I also don't want to smite them all. And so he told the Sumerian king that the flood was coming and that his brother was making the flood and they would essentially all die. And he built an ark. And that was before the Bible. The Bible stole the story and homogenized it into, like, this sinful, a manifesto.
But couldn't you see multiple floods? And if there's multiple floods, maybe not the whole earth was flooded. That's how animals survived.
But that's how they, how those smaller people perceived.
Right, and the animals didn't survive because 2 by 2 they were put on this ark. The animals survived because in the places they didn't flood. But there were the places where the cities were, and the places where the cities were the places where the aliens were doing their work. That's where they had the people.
Right, the centers.
And so they're creating these floods to wipe out the evidence that they were there. And it's around these centers of industry.
Yeah.
And in those times, that's all people thought the whole world was.
Pumapunke is a example of a dry, high region that experienced an unprecedented flood that just buried the whole thing in mud. It doesn't rain. There's nothing there. It's there's no greenery. There's nothing. It's this, like, desert land on the top of this hill. And how did it flood?
They were bailing ship.
I know, but it's just like, you're right. Maybe it was, like, very specified weather manipulation technology that was, like, selected. These selected spots got wiped out.
Yeah. And maybe you're right. Maybe they passed on technology because it sure seems like they're manipulating weather now. And what's the real purpose? Is it so we can't see the mothership coming in behind the clouds on that designated day?
But you think of it, so, like, these two brothers, they're sick of it. They're like, we have a window of time. I'm sick of these humans to bail out and get either home or to some other star destination. And they have to build these escape pods and vessels and convince their people that they must go. It's a very important quest, and we'll definitely be back. Right, sure. It's like, going out for a pack of smokes, kid. Don't you worry though. And but maybe they will come back and judge us, and they'll either be like, "Oh, you guys are so cute," or they'll be like, "I can't believe how advanced they are, and also, what have you guys done to the place?"
Yeah. Well, I'm sure they've sent little pods and stuff.
Oh, I'm sure.
If they're prepping for a comeback,
yeah,
they're sending out scouts. And
maybe they're not.
plans.
I mean, maybe we all just hope that they are coming back, and they just by telling us that and appeasing, like, please God, don't go. And, no, we'll come back. It's very important that we go. It's a special quest, but we'll be back. Sure, they will.
Well, that coincides with like the whole Christ theory too. If you just see how these stories are just passed down.
There's something deep within us that wants, that has that story. It's not just because like somebody wrote it and we heard it. It's like there's something that resonates deeply in like resurrection myths for human beings. This thought that we do come again, or
that's the
the
trauma.
Creator will somehow not be dead, but be in a cyclical return forever.
That's the trauma that's burned into our DNA.
But sun worship's the same.
Is they left us.
Right, but the sun is the same. We lose the sun every night. The life-giving force every single day leaves us. And yeah, it comes back, but like, what if one day it didn't?
Yeah, we're expecting it not to. That's because it's ingrained in our DNA
right.
that Daddy's leaving.
Right. And we all like play with that narrative in our heads at times of stress or loss. These high emotional extremes are tied in with this. Is this really it? Will I see the sun again? Will I see the sun again? Will Jesus come again? The sun? It's all raw worship. It just goes back. And
isn't it weird how time moves? And how, like, there are some days where you're having such a great day that you just wish the sun would stay there forever, but that sun goes down, like, and that's what ruins your day, is the sun going down. But then there are also nights that you're having such a great night that the sun coming up ruins your great night.
Right.
But then, like, most of the time, everything's just like normal speed. But like sometimes it really speeds up, and it's usually the sun either going down or coming up that like makes you realize how fast time is moving.
Right. Yesterday for me was such a weird day because it was such a high energy day to be bouncing around in between retail locations. Just a lot of energy. People were stocking up for stuff, and the lines are long and everything. And I really thought to myself, today's such a chaotic day, and there's so many people out, that time should go by fast. But instead, I seemed like hyper aware of every passing half hour. And I'm like, I can't believe it's only 11:30.
Yeah.
It feels like it's 1:30, and I should be like about ready to be done here. Yeah. And I just, even driving, I'm like, okay, this should take a half hour to get there. And I was like, I'm almost there. Has it been a half hour? And it had been like 15 minutes, and I was just making really great time. I just had no sense of anything yesterday. And then there's some days where it's like, I never even look at the clock. I'm never even aware. I'm just like, I have so much to do. And today, it should have been like that yesterday with all the energy and all the buzz. But I was just hyper aware of this slow, like, the tick-tock of time, like, was just too much.
Yesterday definitely felt like walking through Jell-O.
That's a good way to put it. There's so much rain, and there's so much standing water everywhere, and
people standing in the way.
And it hasn't been sunny in a long time.
No, and we need that.
Yeah. I need the sun to come again.
No, there's definitely an apocalyptic feel to right now. And it kind of makes you start thinking of, at least it's been making me think about, like, pre-war anywhere, like, where at any time where, like, in times of, and I know we've been at war in the Middle East for a long time, but we're pretty, it's a weird, that's not a thing, that's a thing on someone else's soil, you know what I mean? Where,
Right.
but like I'm talking about countries that get invaded, you know?
Yeah.
And is this what it feels like? Is this the moments before that happens? I mean, I don't want to, like, I'm trying to not give in to fear and join the paranoia, but
look, so much anxiety and so many people anxious over any change to their routine.
yeah.
It's definitely just like the worst possible scenario. It's like, why do we do that?
Right, and I'm not even really feeling gloom and doom that anything's going to happen. I'm feeling gloom and doom because the people are feeding into it and eating.
Right.
And you were talking to me earlier, and you were saying how it's almost kind of scary to think that once this current paranoia is over, people are going to be addicted to that. So what's going to be the next thing that what's the next crazy thing that's happened in your, because it's a moment. There are moments in time where you remember.
Right.
And this is going to be one of those moments where people remember just because of the mass
feeling is so
hysteria
weird.
that came with it.
The feeling is just so weird.
And so that's what scares me are the people that are learning to, they're eating it. It's become food.
The drama, the manufactured drama.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, it just feels everything feels a little too manufactured about all of it.
I can even imagine people who were in it in the last couple of days. They were buying up the supplies, they were buying up the food, they were in the crazy stores with the weird feeling, with everybody trying to get to load up to
Right.
today,
Right.
where they've gotten everything there is. The shelves are empty at the stores. There's nothing else to do, and now you have to sit there just in the calm nothing after having just been in this frenzy yesterday. I'm sure they're reliving it. I'm sure they're jumping onto Facebook and talking about it and reliving it. And
but when you say they, like,
me too. I was in it yesterday too, and
Right.
today I'm feeling like I'm kind of bored.
right, but
I don't have a purpose today.
Guess it just
Yesterday I
kinda
had a
depends.
purpose.
Like, right, like, yeah. Well, that's the thing, and that's why I think people are going to see this pattern of like if the drama runs out, everybody's watching each other like reality TV right now. We're just watching our family, we're watching our friends, we're looking at the carts of shoppers pass us, and we're assessing what essentials these people have chosen.
Right.
Did they have toilet paper? Do they have it? Do they have it?
Yesterday.
Before I walk all the way back there, not. Because if it was stocked here, it would be in these people's carts.
That's what I was thinking yesterday. If this store had toilet paper, I'd be seeing people leaving with toilet paper.
Yeah.
But they did.
And I was around 7 major suburban hubs yesterday, and right in the thick of it. And liquor sales seem to be doing pretty well. Produce, not so hot. Cleaning supplies and paper goods cleared out. I don't know. It was kind of surreal, but I just don't want people to get hooked on that like they do on shopping, like clearance sales and just buying something because it's $4 and just a hoarding mentality. That's not a sustainable model. But that's what we really need to look at is like, how do we unite for ourselves and for the long term on this thing? Because it could diminish and then spike up again. It could evolve rapidly after everybody keeps sanitizing absolutely every single surface. Old diseases that were eradicated may come back in a stronger strain with all these newly completely sterile, over sanitized surfaces that, communicable diseases are called that because humans are a community species of communication. All we do is communicate in our communities. That's what we do. And it's tricky. It's a retail thing. I mean, the algorithms are there to track it. It's going to show. Everyone's going to know everything about everyone.
Yeah. And it's not that Big Brother is watching, it's that everybody is watching.
We're just watching each other.
Yeah. And here's what I'm noticing. I'm noticing the younger generation this is what it's taken for the younger generation to realize that the older generation doesn't give a fuck about
and
them.
is truly inept about handling
And
any real situation.
And how somebody who's 65 and has a house and has had a great job and is probably just starting in on retirement, how that person can look down at like a 21-year-old because they weren't prepared and they didn't have their stockpile already in place, and or even to look down on the poor people. Like I was telling you today, it's like there are people who have to work, and there are people who have been at work all week, and because they're at work all week, they can't get to the grocery store to buy supplies.
Hospital orderlies and nurses,
and they're out there today, they finally got their weekend, picking up what's left over because the people who had their days off during the week and have the money and the luxury to be out there have gone out and bought everything.
Right. And I don't want to point fingers at any specific demographic, and it might have been true anywhere else simultaneously, but my source of information had a report from Utah from an Instacare urgent clinic type of situation and institution, and they had seen something close to 2,000 completely healthy patients flood in to their locations and tax their resources on just speculative sickness. We're not talking that they just had the common flu and weren't diagnosed with COVID-19. We're talking
just
perfectly healthy people.
Yeah.
Just going to a location where the chance of getting sick is greatly increased.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's crazy, but what do you expect? We're just animals who had our DNA.
And this is the thing. I think we just really failed to look at ourselves and how hard it really is for all of us just to get through a day. This capitalism thing isn't working for these subsequent generations. We aren't thriving in it. And just to say, okay, well, we're not. We don't know how lucky we are, is what they always say, But to have ideas and to have principles that you want to try and institute in your society to be freed from this, it's just a life of frustration. And I'm not saying I want anybody to pick up the bill for me on anything. I'm trying to say that there's a growing number of people who clearly see that this model of not a wealth, but a lifestyle is just really falling flat because we can sense the potential of how it could be. And most of everyone we know within our closest communities agree with us.
Right. And what it could be is only made possible if the people who have, give some to the have-nots, and that's on all levels, from bottom to top.
Maybe you do just let certain groups kind of opt out, and give them another option of living in a community and providing. Right,
because you can't do that now. You can't go off grid. You can't buy property and go off grid.
It's a bourgeois fantasy that they sell kids, that if you somehow get 17 little streams of mini incomes, that you can live off the grid and be free to express yourself creatively. It's not that you don't know how to work or you don't want to work. You have a very inspired plan to live your own life. It would be a source of freedom in what is supposed to be a free country. We've seen other generations have those kinds of choices. Most of their businesses started out that way, in this kind of wild, wild west. Make your allies, get some land, get a loan. That we've seen them be empowered to have this kind of magic cast over their lives where their dreams can be realized, and that just hasn't been true for the subsequent generations at all. And so we're just saying, okay, maybe that worked for you guys, but we have just other dreams of
right. But you can't. But the thing is no, you're not going to have
sharing
another dream.
Agricultural things, and some communities still, I mean, they do exist. There's like one in Iceland, I think, or Finland. It's like Feinhorn, that is just kind of like a closed off community. But I mean, I just think they should really loosen the parameters on the ways people live.
Because if you buy a piece of land out in the middle of nowhere and you just try to go build an off-grid small house, they won't let you. You still have to have a permit.
Right.
Most likely, they're going to, even if you run solar, they're going to make you attach to the grid, the power grid, and sell whatever solar you don't use back.
But now I'm looking at this flip side. Now you're saying it. Now I'm like, you couldn't just allow everyone to. You couldn't.
Because
I get it.
Because people would.
That breaks the system. These are, I guess,
because
just my
walk into any public restroom and tell me that people are going to be considerate of each other without a government.
You're right. You're right. I know. This is some tragedy of the commons stuff. Like, the people that I know and I share my life with, I know would be amazing to just be in a separate community with. But then there's like the truth of how people behave in public spaces. Yeah. Yeah.
So this is what we.
Oh,
this is the dilemma.
We're back to nowhere.
and suddenly, maybe the idea of aliens coming back is not such a bad thing.
Right. I think that's what I was trying to say when I started with my whole story about the retail lines. It's just that, like, we're all so locked in that this distraction is kind of stimulating. It is kind of exciting to get a rush, like something might actually happen, like something big enough to impact the system. Could that it's a terrible thing, and we're all cringing because it's like, it's a sickness that's going through. But on the flip side, we're seeing like, oh my gosh, something can actually disrupt the system. And like, what's going to happen when people spend a little more time at home, have time to work on their creative stuff? These are the privileged people.
Right, and look what happens
in the middle ground.
And look what happens when you just make a minor disruption.
Right.
Look at what happened. Imagine a major disruption.
Right, like aliens. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Because look at what the popular movies of aliens coming have been. Terrifying invasions and absolute panic. Like, they showed us the model. Here's what you're going to do.
It's also desensitized us to it because it's been fed to us as fantasy. So we don't believe it's happening because we believe it's made up.
Right, but look, I'm from shock and awe.
Yeah.
Those were my formative years, and that's what I was taking in through my eyes, and trying to put myself in a mindset where I would be someone just living in that city, trying to figure out what the fuck is happening and what is going on right now. And then moving here and being this close to Camp Pendleton, and the first time they started shelling and how the house used to shake and the windows would jolt and shit would fall off the shelves, to the desensitized point I am at living adjacent to Camp Pendleton now. I wouldn't know if the bomb got dropped. The house would shake. I would have been like, I'd keep making dinner.
Right.
And I guess it just gets like that until one day
you don't see it coming.
Yeah.
It's like like I was saying with these movies,
desensitized.
But we've seen these. We're so desensitized that we're not looking for them to come.
Right.
And so look at how unprepared the world was for a virus with flu-like symptoms. You imagine how unprepared the world is for Zeus's return.
And the idea that the angels will return and pass judgment on us is exactly what we were saying, like, right? When they come back, their home planet finally is within the orbit, or it's still like, I think the prediction is like Nibiru comes again in like 2900.
I don't know.
But let's say, okay, now
that's an estimate.
That's nothing in a hyper technological spaceship.
True.
Or if they know where the wormhole is, they're already on their way, and they're just not here yet. It's just I don't know. It's too much, man.
And 900 years, it isn't that long as far as human history is concerned.
Right. Well, look at what we've become in 900 years.
Yeah. From, what was 900 years ago?
Look at where we've come in 19 years.
19.
Right?
20. The 20 years from the 21st century.
Right.
From 2000 from 2000, that was pre 9/11 to now. The year before 9/11 to toilet paper gate or whatever, toilet paper apocalypse.
Yeah. I just the way we're behaving, we Americans, and knowing, I mean, I'm sitting here being a brat, like saying I want to start my own community and they should let me because I say I should. But there are these other countries and these communities and these, well, and right here there are communities that, I mean, something like this affects them. It's their jobs. It's their livelihood. A couple of days off just isn't a doable factor.
It's not an option, and
It's
then suddenly
not, right.
it's saying no. You're right. It's not an option.
Yeah, I really, really hope that we act magnanimously to aid all underserved communities, not just here, all over the world.
Yeah, and when
we have the surplus because we are the retail giant. We are capitalism. That means we're the biggest. The world is going to look at us like...
Well, the crazy thing, the hard thing and the crazy thing is that the people who have the resources to help aren't the ones that are willing to help. It's the people who are willing to help are the people that don't have it to give anyway, and they still do.
I know.
You know, this is what we live in.
Community support.
Meanwhile,
the privileged.
Yeah.
Which, you know, I've been very lucky myself. But I've been more scared than I am right now.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a bad thing to say. Maybe I'm just asking for it.
I know. That's why I've been struggling to not speak about my lack of fear of it, just to not want to be proven wrong and have this terrible thing happen.
Yeah. It is a terrible thing. I mean, people are going to die. People are dying.
Yeah. People are dead.
Yeah.
They say.
No, I mean, it is. It's terrible. And if it really caught on, I mean, it's a significant threat, not just to older people, but to anyone with a compromised immune system that like might be in their last round of chemotherapy or something. And it's very, very strong, and they're immunosuppressed to kill their cancer. And something like this comes along, and that's a big community. So many people suffer from. It's so hard to get help. If you can buy good cancer treatment, you're a privileged person. Because without it,
then this is really scary.
Yeah. That's a bummer.
Where? Oh.
But, sorry, it's on my mind. I mean, there's just no way around it.
No, I didn't really want to talk about it, but there's not really any way not to. That's just kind of what is weighing everything down right now. And for me, it's like we were saying earlier. It's not. I'm not. My fear isn't of the virus. My fear is of the people.
Well, I mean, to tie it all around here, we tried to go back into history, and I actually started into this whole, my recent pyramid and alien studies again, not because of the threat of a global pandemic, like I had started a couple days before that. Sometimes I hear something and I get interested in it, and then I just read everything I can find about it and completely immerse myself in it. And so here I am, like, looking at these ancient cataclysmic disasters over these past couple of days. And then the escalation of events over the past 2 days from, voluntary quarantines to just full-on national emergency to other countries being in full-on lockdown with empty streets. It's got this whole Passover feel.
Yeah, for sure.
That hits me like right in like my gut area, and then it's just been so much to process. And then I'm just comparing, okay, like, it's not something I ruminate on every day, but the last couple of days I've been ruminating on, like, how did these giants or aliens or whoever this mystical power was get these people to build these giant things like ants would. And then I get all existential, hyper, weird. But then this global pandemic, and then I got to compare. Now I'm seeing.
You've been out
now
in the world.
I'm seeing.
You see the ants.
Now, right, and now I'm seeing these lines and lines and lines of shopping carts and people fighting old ladies for toilet paper. All the meat sections of everywhere selling out. The fruit still fully stocked. It's
here's a positive. Here's a positive thing out of all of this. For me, purely selfishly for me, here's a positive, and maybe other people are experiencing this. My DMs on Instagram right now are filled with messages from people that I have followed and who have been following me for years, and we've never messaged each other. And I've got a DM box full of messages. One from like I don't know, friends. Well, I mean, just people I have known, but people I haven't heard from forever, just because of some memes I've been posting in my story. But I'm having, it's good, interesting, stimulating dialogue from people that I know. Like, I feel like I know them personally. I've been looking at their posts for years. And this is finally, and
they're wanting to really connect.
And I've got a lot, and I got to get to. As soon as we finish this, I'm going to go respond to some.
I like
but
that.
it's been creating this community again, this feeling of community again with these people, with this small group of people who are like, "Nah, we don't want to be involved in all that.
Right.
We're going to be over here making jokes."
Right. Yeah, and I've seen a lot of people around, but really, actually, everybody's been acting pretty darn civilized. I mean, I've seen examples of the worst behavior highlighted on internet stuff, and see, that's me not paying attention enough to realize that I'm taking in the extreme things through my eyes, and I'm witnessing in person people responding to a threat, and maybe choosing to get prepared to keep their families safe and behaving in a general civilized manner. And then this morning, being out in public, everyone was extremely friendly and kind, and they have a blessed day.
Went out to breakfast, and I can't even believe, like,
everyone was talking. I've never heard that patio with that many conversations.
And then talking to each other.
And then chiming in, ourselves included.
Into other people's conversations.
Into other people's conversations, and just really actually having a community discussion in our little community cafe. And then just going to the grocery store, and everyone was extremely kind and courteous there as well.
Yeah.
Just, I manufacture my own disaster, I guess. I look and I see these extreme measures, and then I get a sense of, people could behave like that. But so far, really what I've witnessed is...
But on the other hand, you're not witnessing the people who cleared the aisles. The people during the week when you and I were at work that cleared the aisles, we didn't see their behavior. We're there today in the aftermath with the people who worked all week
who are
looking for slim pickings.
Yeah, we don't really have
game plan. We work. And the workers are changing, and workers are starting to like recognize other workers, and us people who can't take a day off to go prepare for this thing that came out of nowhere.
Right.
We got a letter saying that from the school district saying that they were going to keep schools open. These were the guidelines they were going to use to make sure everyone stayed safe. You texted me saying they're closing the schools, and I'm like, 5 minutes ago I was just reading the letter saying they're keeping it open.
Yeah.
And so things happen so fast that people can't take time off work to go jump in and take care of that stuff.
Yeah, be there for each other.
But now we're all the ones. We're the ones who are going out there today are all the ones that didn't panic. So of course we're the ones that are nice to each other. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Of course,
I guess so.
and there's nothing left to like fight over. Like there's no toilet paper to fight
true.
over. So
Yeah.
like it's now we can just laugh about it.
It's like we're all up Sheets Creek.
The shit has hit the proverbial fan.
Oh, come on, man. No ramen. Ramen is gone. I hope you're okay. Because ramen is going to be we're going to miss that ramen.
Yeah. Well, this has been a nice conversation, I think.
I'm sorry. I kind of went off the
That's
rails.
the point. That's the point.
I often do that when... Oh, wait, just all the time. I was going to say when I'm nervous, but that's just all the time.
But those pyramids, huh?
I had never thought of them as a giant chemistry flask. Holy shit. That just changed, like... I'm suddenly now viewing, like, the physics in the working natural world in a totally different way. I had some kind of epiphany from it. Like a pyramid, a story about a pyramid and a scientist doing an experiment and demonstrating it in a pyramid-shaped flask and letting me see it was like this, like that meme with his head exploding. Who's from the show that I was watching about it, but he's not the one who did the experiment. But it was wild. Now I'm like suddenly, it's like, what does this look like? Where else can I find this model in the universe so that I start to test my own things? Like, is this a possibility? Have I just never thought of things this way before?
They say there's pyramids on Mars.
They say that, yeah. And we don't know what's on the other side of the moon.
No.
It's a party over there.
On the other side of the moon?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's probably pretty cold.
No.
They have heaters?
I mean, have you seen... Okay, imagine...
I mean, there's images of it.
Think of the deep sea creatures on Earth. It looks like a Darwinian rave. It's like...
Oh, like no eyes.
It's like Burning Man down there. It's like...
They can't feel the cold like the people... They don't have the people at the bottom of the ocean. The creatures at the bottom of the ocean.
But they've developed these... they have eyes that aren't eyes. These other sensories and all these neon colors and these ways to display. Like that rainbow octopus thing blew my mind the other day. I was like, this thing is alive here on this planet. It looks like a cosmic angel floating through space. So if that's what the other side of the moon looks like...
Yeah, I heard something the other day.
I'm down.
That octopi...
Yeah?
They haven't been able to trace them back. Their DNA is not of this world. I don't know if that's true or not. I was meant to look into it, but that they were talking about how the octopus... I actually believe that one. They haven't been able to trace it back to its first thing. They think it's 100... There's a theory that it's 100... It's a completely alien thing that wasn't from this planet.
Right. Well, it has no bones, so there's never any... It doesn't have the DNA imprint of anything calcium-based left to remain to test. It, like, dissolves when it dies. It's gelatinous.
Yeah.
It's jellyfish, too.
Some weird shit out there.
Yeah. I hope the dark side of the moon looks like a street fair in the bottom of the ocean. An octopus's garden.
Well, you know it does.
Thank you for listening. Follow Hollee on Instagram at Ursus Esperanto. Follow Mark on Instagram at tincan.telephone. And be sure to follow us and read our cosmic messages on Instagram at A Higher Source. Participation in the digital realm will only help you transition between dimensions. We are free of our earthly forms in the digital realm. We flow through numbers. We write poetry in ones and zeros. Do you consider yourself a star seed? Would you like to speak with Hollee and Mark about your experiences in this dimension? Contact us on Instagram at A Higher Source and let us know. We'd love to add your voice to the conversation. Tune in next week as Hollee and Mark continue their fall down the rabbit hole, as they continue to peel back the layers of what it means to be a human living in the physical realm. Donations to a higher source are always welcomed. If you feel enriched from our message today, please consider visiting www.ahighersource.org and throwing a few dollars our way to help cover the costs of this earthly endeavor. Listen to A Higher Source on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, and all of your favorite podcast apps. You can also listen on Open Lines Radio along with the other Open Lines Radio collection of podcasts at www.openlinesradio.com. Thank you for joining us. Until next week, we'll see you in the digital realm. Come play.